You're listening to Transformational Thinkers with Sara Sheehan, the global podcast where growth-minded CEOs and executive leaders get real-world strategies on business transformation, talent development, and mastering change management. Each episode brings actionable lessons, candid conversations with C-level innovators, and human capital strategies from around the world. If you're ready to scale, optimize your organization, and lead breakthrough change, you're in the right place. Let's unlock enterprise growth and success together. On today's episode of Transformational Thinkers, I'm sitting down with Alykhan Jetha, better known as AJ, the CEO behind Marketcircle and Daylite. We get real about building a successful workplace, handling change, and all the tough leadership lessons no one tells you about. If you're ready for some honest stories and game-changing advice, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today, I am joined by AJ, Alykhan Jetha. AJ is the CEO of Marketcircle and Daylite. I am so excited to have some time with you today.
So am I.
AJ, can you talk briefly about the growth trajectory for Marketcircle and Daylite?
Yes, I can. So we're a product. We're a software as a service company, and we have a product called Daylite, and you subscribe to it annually or monthly and whatnot. We cater specifically to small businesses, 1 to 100 in size, and more so in the services space. So people that kind of have build relationships, sell time, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And we focus on the Apple ecosystem. So we're on Mac, iPhone, iPad, etc. And so our growth trajectory is, we have customers in some 70, 80 countries around the world. And so in that way, we're fine in terms of the spread there. However, what we need to do is we need to grow in overall, like in terms of subscribers and so forth. And so, the market is changing. The traditional kind of thing that we've been playing in and the sandbox we've been playing in is along the lines of productivity and CRM, which is catered to the same market. But now what we're doing is we're going to be focusing a little bit more on time tracking and invoicing in the future, so that we can have a holistic package.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of had that in the past as separate products, but now that we've focused on the Daylite product, we're going to bring some of that functionality into the main product so that you have a holistic kind of, acquire your customers, do the work, and then finally invoice it. And that caters to that specific type of industry, like professional services and so forth.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's our trajectory in terms of where we're going. And we're bootstrapped, so we get there one step at a time kind of thing. And so we, have a long roadmap, one step at a time. Sometimes a step takes longer. Sometimes you got to go backwards a couple of steps. And, I'm sure we'll cover some of that.
And so, AJ, I understand that you haven't taken outside funding investment. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not for what we have done. Originally, when I started this company, speaking of resilience, it wasn't what we're doing today at all. It was a .com kind of thing where I went to raise money. I got to the VCs, in San Francisco, and by the time I got there, I just got there basically maybe a few months late, because when I got there is when the internet bubble burst, or the .com bubble burst, and I was swiftly kicked out. And so that venture didn't work out. But I pivoted, and I went into consulting, and then pivoted again, went to the product, pivoted again. Now we're cloud, and then now we're changing niches a little bit and tweaking things.
And so it was a lucky missing timing. Yes,
we made it good. We could have easily, very, very easily, shut the whole thing down and said, it didn't work, and that's that. And so there was that decision to be made when this event occurred, which was in May of 2000. And I could have shut the company down, and everybody that came along for the ride would have been like, well, we tried and the bubble bursts. It is what it is. But instead, we had a few people to pay that lent us some money, and so we did consulting work. We pivoted to doing consulting work to pay those folks off.
Well, and it's always good to have additional working capital and income coming in so that you can make the investments where you need to, for sure.
Yeah, ultimately, yes. In that particular case, it was just keeping the lights up.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be said for that. 2000 was a truly odd time, without question.
Mm-hmm.
So, AJ, when you have faced rapid market shifts, just like what you were just describing, what invisible cultural beliefs within organizations most often block transformational change? And how do you identify and address these hidden inhibitors?
That's a really good question. Really good question. So let me start by a situation where there were no inhibitors, and go into the inhibitors. So the no inhibitors is, which was, for example, the beginning of the company. There's no baggage. Everybody's new. Everybody knows that this is kind of a very malleable kind of time frame. Things can change and so forth. So everybody's mindset is like, well, things can change. Tomorrow I could be doing something different, or we may need to change something drastically or what have you. So everybody's in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make a decision, go in a certain direction, and switch on a dime and go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good. That's
Sure.
being able to go. And so now on the flip side, when a business is established, maybe not necessarily fully established, but somewhat established, you have processes in place, you have people's habits in place. People are doing certain things they're used to doing all the time. The kinds of people you have in that particular kind of business they're more operational, meaning that they're the ones that keep the clock running
Mm-hmm.
regularly,
Right.
as opposed to mavericks when you change on a dime kind of thing, right? So you have a different kind of mindset. And so now, let's say that you face a market shift,
Right.
and you have to change. You're faced with people that like it the way it is, right?
Sure.
And you need to either bring them along, or they need to change buses, right?
Right.
One or the other, right? So when this occurs, there are a couple of ways that and I've done a couple of these. So there's a couple of ways. One is we lay out a plan, and we tell and we just start going. And there's certain people that won't adapt, and they'll leave.
Sure.
Right. So that's one. That's the bulldozer going full bore one way, right? Another way is when you kind of start preparing people a little bit. So and we're going to have to make this shift. It's not a shift we're making tomorrow. It's a shift we're making maybe in a month or a little bit. So you start prepping, you start laying the groundwork. Mm-hmm. That change is coming.
Right.
Right. And so that prepares the folks that are more habit based, that, oh, there is a change coming. And when the change does come, they don't freak out.
Right.
Right. And now, even in that particular situation, I've had folks that, the change is coming. There's a bunch of people that are, okay, change is coming. I'll adapt. We'll figure out the new way. And then there are people that still don't want to adapt. Mm-hmm. Right.
Of course.
In that case, it's best to part ways. Right. Because the energy it takes to kind of convince them and bring them is taking you away from accomplishing the goals that you need to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so there's a trade-off there between the energy you're putting towards the target versus the energy that you're putting to drag the baggage mm-hmm. with you. Right. And so I don't know if there's a better term for that, but that trade-off you're making, you have to decide, where am I going to make the trade-off? And so typically if the market is shifting quickly, competitors are on your neck, you kind of have to switch quickly, and the best thing to do is just to part ways.
As a CEO, I just want to commend you for being so highly adaptable and being able to see in front of you how you need to navigate and lead your business through big changes like that.
Thank you. It does come, it wasn't learned prior, and I didn't know this prior. It's through hard experiences that this knowledge comes.
There's nothing like hard-won lessons learned, right?
Yeah. It's at the time I wish I knew, but I did not. In retrospect, I know now. So hopefully, I'm sharing this, and somebody can.
Exactly, and it also sounds like you realize that focusing on bringing the laggards along, the ones that are the most resistant to change and need the most amount of time, you've learned to focus on that early majority and as many of people, like let's say 2/3 instead of everybody.
Correct. That's about right. So in my experience, that's very insightful of you. In my experience, it is that kind of ratio: 2/3, 1/3 to 3/4, 1/4 kind of thing.
We find in planning change that if you really focus on the innovators and early adopters, they can bring the rest of the organization along as well.
Yes. So in the tech space, most of the people that you have are of this nature, because they're in the tech space.
Absolutely.
It changes all the time. So most of the people are like that. Now, when it gets to operations, that's a different story. When it gets to so there is. Let's go back to the innovators and those, right? Like when we think of engineers,
Right.
for example, that are making the product, there's two types of scenarios. One scenario is, you're making a new kind of product or a significantly different set of features, but you're using the same foundational, the programming language, the environment. That's a very easy thing and pretty
Right.
normal. Where it becomes difficult is you realize that technology base is not working for you, and you need to switch, quote unquote, stacks.
That's a big
This
deal.
is the term that we use. You need to switch stacks. So now all the skills that you've acquired in the last 4, 5, 6 years, you kind of need to relearn on the new thing. And that kind of shift can be challenging, again, for programmers and for engineers. And so I've noticed that same kind of ratio, 2/3, 1/3, even up to 50%, like not being able to make the switch, or thinking that the stack that I was with is I want to stay with that stack, so I'm going to go somewhere else. And so the ones that do stay, they need to make the switch. And then again, we have this 2/3, 1/3 scenario happening where some are like, they're gun ho. Oh, this is great. We're learning something new. We're going to do something new. Where they're all in.
Perfect.
They're in fact pulling you, right? Versus there's the other ones, which is like, well, I don't understand it, and I can't do this, and they can't hit their deadlines.
This is tough. It's a tough thing to negotiate. Yeah. I mean, when you're changing the technology stack, it is a big, big change, and it does come down to skills and making sure.
Yeah, and malleability in your malleability, right? Like if you're set in a way and you feel that that's the right way, and you're unwilling to adjust your brain.
Exactly.
It's just it's uphill the whole way, and
very steep uphill. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, AJ, can you share an example of a strategic decision where conventional leadership wisdom conflicted with your intuition? And
oh yes,
I got a good one. What did the outcomes teach you about trusting your own insight as a CEO?
So let me give you the scenario. So this was 2023, early 2023. And one aspect of our product is the ability to integrate with Apple Mail. So remember, we were telling you we focus on the Apple platform. So we would integrate with Apple Mail, provide some pretty unique functionality that you didn't get anywhere else. And that was kind of like one of the secret sauces of our product. And late in 2022, there were two security breaches in the Apple ecosystem. I don't know if you remember the AirTags thing, where people were able to find other people, and then the alternative app store. So those two security breaches occurred through the path that we used for our mail integration, our mail plugin. And so Apple shut that path down, right? That they shut that door. And we got a little bit of heads up before it was done, because they knew, like our, they know about our product. They know that it actually makes a difference to small businesses. So they gave us a heads up that this,
We have a problem.
This is happening. Yeah. And so because they knew we would have to adapt, they in fact gave us and other developers that do similar kind of stuff an extension kit, so that a more secure way of doing certain bits. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same by any means. It was something, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't not nothing, but it was. So we had this decision to make. Like, what do we do? We did, plan for this scenario before. It wasn't an unknown scenario. It wasn't and so in our plan was, we would add a mail client to Daylite itself, so that you just connect to your IMAP mail server or what have you, and you would be able to use mail inside of Daylite, and then we'd be able to give you all that intelligence that we were able to give you prior. We'd give it to you right, because we have it. We have this information, right? And so then, one of the things that we were doing in the past was we would do a lot of gut moves, like my gut saying, okay, we should do this and that. And we would do those things, and we would make switches. And then so we wanted to become more disciplined about using data to make these decisions, as opposed to which is off the cuff. So he said, okay, and I bought into this. Okay, let's use data to make the decisions. And this was in 2021, 2022 that we were kind of thinking about, maybe even 2020, that we were thinking of, use data to make decisions, use as much data as possible to make decisions. So here we are, early 2023, and we look at the data, and the data is telling us that a subset of customers use this feature, and therefore, and the argument was that if it's only a subset, then we should go with the extension, because development-wise, that's less time and less effort, instead of the built-in mail, right? Because the built-in mail is a heavy lift. It's a year-long project with 3, 4, 5 engineers. It's not a big
investment.
It's a big investment, and the extension was a smaller investment, a significantly smaller investment. And so, we're going data, right? We're looking at the data. But as I talked to customers, as I was talking to customers, the customers would tell me, are you kidding? That's the most important part of your product, right? Now, I'm only talking to a handful of customers. We have thousands of customers, right? And so, there's the whole thing of the squeaky wheel kind of gets the grease, so to speak. And so the argument was always presented to me as, those customers that are talking to you, they're the squeaky wheels. They don't represent the majority, because the data here represents the majority. So we went with this decision based on data, even though my gut was like, I was just disturbed by it a little bit, but the data was there, right? I was looking at the data. So we had a conflict here. The conflict was data said this, instinct said this, right? And because we were trying to be more disciplined, I was trying to be more disciplined about our decisions. We went with, and that's conventional thinking, use the data. So we went with the data decision. Turns out that the data was wrong.
Did you not have enough customers in the sample?
So we had all our customers in the sample, because we have telemetry, right? But the problem is that, since we're not a web app or anything like that, and we're an application that you launch and you keep running, right? You don't quit it. And some of our customers go weeks, and I go weeks sometimes without restarting the app. It's just running in the background. I just do my thing, and I go to my next app, etc. So we got the wrong data, right? We got the wrong data, and by this time, we were in the extension thing. Customers were hating it, and we were losing customers. Right? We tried to adapt and adjust and so forth, and we put a lot of effort into it, like all hands on deck kind of thing, to use that extension mechanism and adapt and adjust. And we did. We put some effort in there, and it didn't work, and we were just losing customers.
And so when you found out that the data was wrong, what did you do then?
Well, okay, so the data narrative was driven by some of our execs, a couple of our execs. And then myself, my COO, etc. We were like, the instinct says otherwise, and it was, a very like hard kind of argument, and it wasn't a, well, you could be wrong kind of argument. The data is the data, and it's the truth, right? And that was that's the stance they took, right? That the data is the data, and your instinct is wrong, right? So the inability to have some humility around this was really the root problem here. Because if we were coming to you and saying, instinct says otherwise, or talking to customer says otherwise, you may have dug into the data more, or you may have tried to look at the data in a different way, or etc. You may have, gone back to this, let me reevaluate my decision here, or let me reevaluate things. But there was no such behavior, right? And at the time, it didn't occur to me the lack of willingness to kind of reevaluate everything based on, I wasn't, it was like, the data's there, like, you can see it yourself, and there's the graphs, and there's the data, there's the raw data, like you can look at it yourself. There was no, and I was looking at that and says, yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, the data is there. So that lack of willingness to adapt, or not adapt, that lack, the lack of humility there, that's really ultimately what it was. So, after the decision, it became very apparent that was the wrong kind of decision. And there was a few other things that occurred feature-wise. Again, was backed up by this kind of thing, and inflexibility of, I had to fire those executives and go back to the drawing board. And so now we're actually,
I'm sure it was a tough decision.
I rarely get stressed out, like, in terms, there are always problems. It's like, I'm not dying, so I'm fine, right? Like physically, I'm not dying, right? And so, I can go to, it could be a really bad situation. I can go to sleep, no problem. I wake up on, no problem. But this time, I was like losing sleep because of, like, the pros of these people versus the cons, right? The pros, there were a lot of pros, like there were a lot of pros, but there was this one big con, right? And this one con was affecting the behavior of people in the company, the stress levels of people in the company. It was basically a kind of toxic atmosphere, right? And as a remote company, sometimes you don't see that.
Well, it can go underground really fast.
It did.
And be a very negative influence on business.
100%.
And then
100%. That's exactly what happened.
And adding to it, the fact that you were seeing that you were losing customers. I mean, that's a perfect storm.
Yeah. So we had to I had to let them go, and it was a very, very difficult decision. And I did, that's one of the times I lost some sleep at night, which is a rare occurrence for me. So yeah, it was a difficult decision, but I did it, and there was a heavy price to be paid. both in severance as well as in
I understand.
just kind of rebuilding things. But people stepped up, and
That's a
it's going well.
great, and very powerful example. So thank you for that. How do you build psychological safety for senior leaders, especially during times when their influence is being directly challenged or redefined by organizational transformation?
So it's another great question. You have great questions. This is a great question. And so there is um, there is the politically correct answer and the not politically correct answer. So I'm going to go with I'm going to tell it how it is. So the narrative there is that you basically have to coddle people, so that you can kind of um, help them through stuff. But if you're at the executive level and you don't have a thick skin, and you're not developing a thick skin, or you're unable to develop a thick skin, then you need to go. That's not the place for you, right? So there is, okay, that's one extreme, right? Coddling versus the harsh reality. In reality, it's a little bit in the middle, right? Where you have a great exec, VP or director or whatever, and they're going through a bit of a they're getting their ego a little bit hammered on. But maybe they made a wrong decision, and they kind of own up to it. This is great. This is the best kind of person is, they made a mistake. Fine, people make mistakes. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. I make lots of mistakes, right? But if you own up to it, then you can say, okay, well, we can fix it.
We
We
can
can work
fix it.
together. And we can
Yes.
fix it. So I've had executives that or high level people that they made a mistake. They're
They own it.
they own it, and they're beating themselves up, about it, right? Like they're down because they're
Right.
owning the
I'm
mistake.
upset that I did that, and I want to own it, and I'm going to.
And they're upset for a while because they feel they let you down. They feel they should have caught this. They feel they should have made a better decision. So in those situations, when I detect that, which is not always, somebody sometimes has to tell me, then I just have a conversation with
Right.
them, and I say, like, look, this is this is
We can deal with this.
this don't beat yourself. Yeah, let's work together. Let's figure out how we can not repeat the mistake. Let's the biggest thing I say is, like, look, don't beat yourself up over it. If I was like truly angry and pissed off at you, I would be talking about when are you leaving. But that's not what we're doing here, right? And so that brings kind of that guilt off a
Right.
little. That takes it off. So sometimes that's one on one. You're never doing this
Absolutely.
publicly. You're kind of having a one on one conversation. You kind of listen to them. They kind of talk it out. You help them realize that, yeah, it's a mistake, but it's not that bad. At least you're owning up to it, and I appreciate that. I
Yeah,
value that you're
absolutely.
owning up to it, and that you feel terrible, and so you're not going
That's
to
right.
repeat the
That's right.
mistake.
I would hope that they are coming to you talking about it, but also coming to you with, I have a couple of solutions or recommendations for next steps.
So in the situations I've had, it's okay. The mistake's been made, and we've already made the correction, and the correction is typically a
Of
decision I
course.
have to make, right? Yeah, and so now the correction's made or whatever, and so there's no question of, well, here's the solution. It's more of like, I feel terrible that I made this mistake and I let you down, right? So just correcting that scenario.
Okay. Excellent. That's a great example. What practices or routines have you developed for making sense of ambiguous, fast moving scenarios, especially those with high stakes for both people and technology?
All right. So what I've done, what I've learned to do is to work, first of all, myself to clarify the objective and the goal and the reason why. So
the why.
why? So what are we doing? Where are we going? Kind of thing, and why? And what I try to do is I try to make it a simple message, and which is hard. Sometimes it's very hard to make it a simple message. And then I also try to, typically when this kind of scenario occurs, you have a keynote or a PowerPoint where you're kind of going through and you're saying, okay, here's where we're at, here's where we want to go, this is why, etc. Right? Like that kind of thing. And so I learned from the Steve Jobs kind of thing where your slides are not bullet lists. They're one or two words or they're an image or something. And so because otherwise people are reading the bullets rather than listening to you, right? But more importantly, what it does is it forces you to clarify, to really come down to a simple narrative. And so I make those slides and I use some imagery, typically boxes and stuff like that, nothing too fancy. And it helps me when I'm making the slide, it helps me come up with the simple message, right? Because I'm not allowing myself to put bullets. Maybe one or two slides I have some bullets, whatever, when we're talking specific steps, but in general, right? And then subsequently, it allows me to repeat the message when I need to. And sometimes, when we're doing a big shift, for example, that will take multiple months, it's good to have something like that, some tool like that allows you to kind of repeat the same message. So because we have to repeat the message. We may have this in our heads. We talk about it today, great. Then tomorrow comes around and my message can be a little bit different. And because I'm thinking further ahead or maybe a different tangent or something, and then all of a sudden the message becomes muddled.
Well, and you learn things as you go. And what I'm hearing is you are putting together the messaging around a strategic roadmap where you're defining what the journey is and how you need your leaders and staff to work together and
to kind of paint the picture where we're going.
Absolutely.
Right? And the minutiae will change on a day-to-day basis. And in those kinds of conversation, people can get confused. So we use the same that going back to that's those few slides. It's usually 3 or 4 slides. It's nothing huge, right? We use that to recenter because I find that people can easily get confused.
It's very needed.
Because you as a leader are thinking 6 months ahead, 9 months ahead, 3 months ahead, whatever it is. And when you're talking to people, some of that stuff can come out, but that's not something that you need to be acting on yet. We have this plan. We got to, unless there's reason to change.
Well, or if it's a large, complex transformation, you might need to have monthly updates on your roadmap.
Oh no, we do it more frequently than
Perfect.
That. We would do more frequently than that. And so, but the thing is that what I didn't used to do this, and people would eventually get confused, and the result of that confusion is delays, unnecessary work, because people are just trying to adapt and do the right thing. And so, but if they misunderstand what the right thing is, then there is waste introduced, right? And waste equals delays and frustration and extra work, etc. So it's best to just keep it tight and frequent. But then and situations do change, not necessarily the strategy, but you may have some items on the roadmap that now all of a sudden you got to pivot. That one thing is not true that you assumed was true is no longer true, so you got to correct that. And so that that'll be like one little piece in the 1, 2, 3, or 4 slides that you have, and so you fix that, but then the overall message is still the same. as opposed to getting muddled.
And so you are leading not only with the message, but your rationale, the why is very clear. And you
Yes.
are reiterating it too. You're not letting it be one time.
Yeah. So we, when we have these types of things, like we have a weekly all hands.
Wow.
And then in some situations, it's short, right? It's short. And so in some situations, I take the opportunity to repeat what are.
It's good.
We repeat the quarterly goals regularly, but the overall strategy, every once in a while, I throw that back in there to kind of repeat the message. And it's, again, 2 or 3 slides, but it gives me room to talk. It reminds people what it is, etc. So we kind of do that. You have to do it regularly.
Regularly is very, very important. So that's incredible. Yeah. Weekly all hands. That is very.
It's short. Like our all hands is less than 30 minutes. That's very good. So it's on Zoom. It's at 11:30 every Mondays. You're on. We record it in case you're not able to. You're with customers or whatever it is. And then sometimes we're done in 15 minutes because we remind people what are the quarterly goals, where are we at with those items for the quarterly goals, and our quick stats, and any wins. We do try and call out some wins.
Always good to talk about what's working.
Yeah.
AJ, for you, given the accelerating pace of change in business, what unconventional skills or mindsets do you believe executives must now cultivate to remain ahead, not just adaptive, in the next 5 years? Right.
So very good question, and AI is an example of one of those scenarios, right? And so it can be frustrating in the tech space because it changes so rapidly.
It's frustrating for software.
Yeah, it can be so frustrating.
Is so impacted right now.
Yeah, and so and I look. I was traveling, and I look at other kinds of businesses. For example, regular trade businesses where they're trading physical goods. And I'm like, man, that's such a simple business. Like, once you have your template, you can keep that, you can grow that template, or you can, just work that template, and you don't have to change too much. Right. You don't have to think so much. In our space, it's like what I was doing 3 years ago is Correct. Not going to work. I have to rethink it, right? Or I have to adapt to it, right? So first of all, how do you keep your mind open to
new solutions,
realizing that. And then secondly, okay, you realize it. Now that's okay. So that could be academic, and I'll go, well, how am I going to apply it? And what do I need to do to apply it? And when am I going to have the energy to apply it? And when am I going to have the time to apply it? Do I apply it? Is it just hype? Because and so the conventional thing, you just keep up with the trade news and so forth. And what I try to do is, a lot of times, I've gone through a few of these where there's the hype cycle, and there's so much hype around something, and you can put your energies around behind that hype, and ultimately there isn't much value, because there's so much, the signal to noise ratio thing. There's so much noise. What's the actual signal? So let's use AI as an example. Right now, there's so much hype. I mean, the hype is coming down a little bit right now, but there was like so much hype that, it's going to replace people, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do that. And then, so I was trying to understand this before we do anything. I was trying to understand it. And you really need to go down to, like, for example, in this case, what is this AI actually like? How does it actually work? And so you have to think about it. You come to find out, well, there's ML, so machine learning, and then there is LLMs, which is the large language models, and there's a few other things there. And you'll find out that the large language model, which is the ChatGPTs and so forth, those things are non-deterministic, meaning that you can put the same input in twice and get 2 different results.
Right.
And so how do you build product around something that's non-deterministic like that? Versus ML with machine learning, You put the same input, you get the same output.
Correct.
Right? Like it's deterministic. And so, and then I'm like, then we go in to find out that really it's a next word prediction algorithm, right? Based on the weights of previous words that you have, it predicts the algorithm is about predicting the next word, and therefore it can produce nonsense like it does now, which is what we call hallucinations. Right? You heard the term, right?
Yes. It is funny though. I do find it funny to call it a hallucination. It makes me laugh.
Yeah. That's at least for us nerds, that's what we call it. We call it hallucination. And so, there are models that have a high ratio of hallucinations, and there are models that have a lower ratio, but they all have hallucinations. And that's because there is no real intelligence there. It's just an algorithm to predict the next word. And so it just happens to be that it is way more productive than what we were using before, right? Like it's a good starting, a good base. But now, so now you gotta, if you understand this, then you can start making, so you have to take the time to understand it, right? So I could, like, an example, all this AI hype, let's jump on that bandwagon. Let's do this thing. But then you realize, wait a minute, it's non-deterministic. I can't guarantee you, the customer, the same result each time you put the same input. Like, what kind of a product am I making?
And I think it really comes down to how you use it. Where it makes sense to employ it in a situation where maybe you're creating workflow, so you're automating a process.
Yeah, and so that could be a great starting point. But then if you say, okay, well, as writing software or making a product, you say, well, if I put this input in, it should at least come back with the same output, right? And so there are things that are being done right now to enable this, like what I'm talking about. But it's only starting to happen now. It wasn't there
specifically
before.
For you. You're speaking to the creation of code based on.
Well, no, like when we're talking workflow in terms of code, it's been pretty good. It's been very good, actually. There are downsides. There are downsides. I can go into those if you like, but it's been great in terms of getting the wheel going, and saying,
ideas.
it's been great. That's been fantastic. It's been fantastic. Like, okay, I need to solve this problem. How would I solve this problem? Because somebody's already kind of solved this problem in the past. And you just won't be able to find the answer in Google, but if you describe the problem in ChatGPT or in Claude or one of those things, you'll get something, and that something will be, that's the way I could do this, because somebody is, it's from the training that it found something, right? So it's been great. Like, we've been using it, we use it regularly. The con of it is that they can introduce a lot of slop.
Well, and it is great for doing initial research.
Yes.
But the human in the loop, having a person that's involved in actually reading and checking and discerning is very important.
Yes, you can't go like, you remember, I don't know if you remember, like maybe 6 months ago, 9 months ago, the hype was like it's going to replace, all kinds of people altogether, right? The job, that's not happening, right? It might do things like, especially with machine learning, where let's take a radiologist, right? A radiologist looks at the X-rays or whatever the output of the system is, and then makes an opinion on it based on what they know about the human body. And so maybe they're right now manually they're doing 5-10 a day, right? With AI, that same person can probably do 100, because they're just validating, right? Like, I'm just giving you an example, but that doesn't eliminate this person's job. It just makes them more efficient. And so
that's a great example.
There'll be less of the. So now here in Canada, at least, we have a big queue, and that can help with the queue, right? Because we can get more things. But at the same time, putting people in the X-ray machines, AI is not helping with that.
You still have to have people doing it.
You still have to have an operator run that machine. It's the analysis of that imagery that AI.
That's a great example. During high pressure transformations, what personal belief or habit changed the most for you? And how has that shift affected your leadership style or organizational outcomes?
All right, that's another good question. So in my outwardly, leadership, like people looking at me, I haven't changed too much. I've always been calm, and I never get overly excited, which sometimes is not a good thing. But it's good to be excited sometimes. But I'm level-headed, and I've been before, and I still am. What has changed is I use the practice of journaling to kind of make sure that my thoughts are
That's
clear,
great.
as opposed to ambiguous. Same like how we were talking about the slides before
Right.
in the presentation. So what I've done different now than I used to do before. So I used to have a journal before. It's not that I didn't have one, but I would journal occasionally,
Not as
right?
much as a habit.
Yeah, and so what I've done now is it's become more of a habit in the mornings, right? Sometimes I'm not perfect. It's not every day. There are days that I'm off the wagon, but
Sure.
I have my journal, and I just kind of collect my thoughts. And the result of that is that when people are talking to me, because we're talking
Of
all the time,
course. It's highly beneficial.
yeah, my communication is much more crisp, and there's no too many ums and ahs, and like I know what I'm saying, and so that gives people confidence that as opposed to when you're
Getting
winging it a little bit, the confidence level is kind of low.
getting clarity is a very good thing when you're leading and you're in front,
Yeah,
because the clearer you are about your direction and the message that you need to convey, the better it will come across.
that's 100% exactly what's happening. Your wisdoms are
Thank
shining
you.
today.
Thank you. Um, AJ, in your view, what should CEOs be doing to redefine value creation for stakeholders, especially when so much is measured by financial metrics? How is impact measured differently in your leadership journey?
So for me, as a bootstrap company, and I don't have shareholders to report to, I don't look at it in a financial kind of sense. I look at it in terms of, so we have challenges. We have goals that we want to accomplish. I have a number of people that I will accomplish that goal with, right? So I need those people to accomplish that goal. Now, if I am, and those people have institutional knowledge, they know how we work, they you know they're used to our ways, kind of, so to speak. And so if I burn them out, I'm kind of
Right.
hurting myself, right? And in the tech space, burnout is super common, right? So one of the things I've even with this mail thing that we were talking about, right? I've tried to keep it such that you know one of the barometers I'm looking at is burnout, like, and we thankfully have not hit that, and people are relatively happy. This It's lots of work, but it's steady. It's not like it's I'm trying to say it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So that allows me to then not have to hire new people, get them up to speed, because otherwise they'll leave, and so, or they'll be unproductive,
That's right. And so you are being
right?
you're very in tune with your organizational culture, and
I'm
that's
trying to be. I'm
very
trying to be.
impressive.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying. It's not easy. It's not easy. But that's the goal. I'm thinking. Okay, I have this. We're kind of behind the eight ball with this particular situation, right? If I go too hard, which I can, right, then people will burn out. If people burn out, then it falls on me, or I have to find somebody else, and it's going to take me how many months to get them up to speed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that, And so we've managed it carefully.
Managing your, what I would call toxicity or lack thereof in your workplace is a tremendous success factor. It's a tremendous success factor.
Thank you. And we learned the hard way, or I learned the hard way, because we did have a period where there was quite a bit of toxicity, and we got rid of certain people because of that. We changed our communication so it's more clear. We considered these scenarios like people burning out and so forth. And again, communication is important there, because if there is no clarity or there's ambiguity in what the goal is, there'll be extra work, unnecessary work, etc.
Right. I would also offer that people that work in an environment where they know leadership cares about them, they are much more likely to be more productive, to be absent less.
Yes.
And they will go the extra mile.
And we see that. We see that.
So that's a very, very good thing.
Yeah, we see that. Definitely see that.
AJ, how can our listeners find you?
So they can find us or find me on our website, which is Daylite.app. So Daylite.app. And you can find me personally on LinkedIn with my full name, Alykhan Jetha. I'm not too much on social media other than LinkedIn. Occasionally you'll find me on Blue Sky, etc., but mostly LinkedIn. LinkedIn I check regularly. So if you want to get a hold of me, right there, or you can check out our product on our website, Daylite.app.
Fantastic. Is there anything else on your mind today, AJ?
No, just in a thankful state.
Well, I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
The wonderful conversation that we had.
Yeah, that's because of the good questions.
And the great answers.
So teamwork.
Teamwork definitely makes a huge difference.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for your time today, AJ.
You're welcome.
Key takeaways. Embrace adaptability and let go fast. Organizational transformation often means tough choices. Sometimes bringing everyone along isn't realistic. Balance data with instinct. Even with robust analytics, AJ reminded us that customer voices and leader intuition remain crucial. Clarity and communication are everything. Using simple, repeated messaging and regular check-ins like Daylite's weekly all hands keeps teams aligned and reduces waste, especially during high-stakes change. Today, the stakes are tremendous. If you want to be able to manage change in the face of AI, take action immediately and set up a discovery call with me to discuss a private, customized cohort of mastering change management. My Calendly link is in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Subscribe and never miss an episode.